Well, hello, everybody. This is Crystal Lynn, Cowgirl Astrologer. I thought I'd start tonight with a little vibe. One of my favorite songs, just talking about psychic indicators in astrology. Right? Except just to get us in the groove together tonight. All right, well, let's get started tonight, you guys. Part 3 of my series on psychic indicators in astrology. And what I'm here to talk about, one of the questions that I've been asking in all 3 of these episodes, or, this series is, does everybody have psychic ability? Okay, so when I look at an astrological natal chart, there's a lot of things I look for. One of the things that I look for in the personal planets, which is the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and I like to include Jupiter in there. I look at that first and I see if there's any water signs in those power planets, because that makes up a very powerful and potent part of who we are. So the water signs, as we've been talking about in the other 2 videos, is Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Okay, and I believe personally that those 3 signs are the strongest, most intuitive and psychic signs of the zodiac, because it is a water sign and they see life through different eyes, through spiritual eyes, through their emotions, through their feel, not through their mind, okay, not through their passion, not through practical ways. They feel it. And if you have those strong energies in your chart, maybe you've never really honed these skills in. Maybe you've never really, realized or talked to anybody about it. But some of the stuff that I've been talking about in these 3 videos, you might start to identify with. Now, intuitive ability in the signs can play out in different ways. So tonight, if you're here and you know your chart and you say, well, I don't have any water signs in those areas. For each sign, I do believe that each sign of the zodiac, all 12, do have areas that they have intuition and that their psychic ability can come out. Now, if those themes and areas are in conjunction with a personal planet, that's going to be more powerful. So you can see it gets into a pretty deep study. If you've never looked at your chart before, I have a brand new icon, or whatever you want to call it, on my site, cowgirlastrologer.com, an option, I should say, I'm sorry, to get a free chart pulled up. All you have to do is go on there. It'll say free chart reading. You put your name. Hopefully you have your time. If you don't have your time, I think you can just put noon in there. It won't give you an exact answer for your ascendant or rising sign, but it'll tell you where all your personal planets are. Okay. And again, if you have any questions about this, you can email me and I will help you. But this will pull up your natal chart. And if you click on the different signs, it'll give you a little description. So you can kind of start to learn. And we want to look to see if you have any planets placed in the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, okay, as your personal planets. Again, that's something you can email me with if you're having any problems. But one of the most important places to look for this is in the ascendant, and that is based on your time of birth. If you do not have your time of birth, I do believe that these themes can play out in your sun and moon sign. So, for example, if you have the sun or moon in Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, that will be a very powerful placement. And these themes that I'm going to talk about tonight will hold true. Now, it's the same thing when I talk about all the signs, because I'm going to go through Libra through Pisces tonight. I'm hoping I'll make it. I have started Aries through Virgo in the first 2 videos. So if you're looking for your sun sign or ascendant or moon sign, and you want to get the themes of where your psychic and intuitive ability can play out the most in your everyday life, go and listen back and find your sign, okay? So tonight we're going to start with Libra, since I ended off with Virgo. Now, Libra is an air sign. So when you have the ascendant, sun, or moon in Libra, you are going to see life, your first perspective, your first image of any situation is going to be through the mind. You're not going to feel it, you're going to think about it. It's got to come through and filter through the mind. Once that happens, there are some very significant places that a Libra's intuitive and psychic ability can come out. The first place that can happen is in the second house, which is ruled by Scorpio. Okay, your second house rules your values and your daily money, your ability to make money, places you can make money, and it's in Scorpio. It's also a place that, really intense events can happen. You can have problems there in the money department, because Scorpio can also bring about, really intense events. It's ruled by Pluto and Mars. And if you've heard me talk about that energy, it's the ability to see psychically and intuitively places that money can be made. If you look at the Libra's life, there's so many interesting things about them. They have the ability to fight for a cause. They also are incredible artists. So when they get very passionate about something, once they have looked at all sides of the situation, which is what their intuitive ability in the second house allows them to do, because the second house also rules your values, and your values is what is important to you. A lot of times the Libra can kind of be wishy-washy, and they'll just kind of play on the fence, and then all of a sudden something will come along and ignite them. And they are extremely passionate about it. That's why they make the #1 attorneys and lawyers, because when they fight for a cause, they are relentless. And that happens in the second house. It's also where they do a lot of research on the things they value, okay, on making money. Now, this can also be a place that brings a lot of deception and manipulation, because just because you have an intuitive ability doesn't mean that everybody uses their psychic ability for the good. They don't always use it for healing. I talk a lot about these intuitive abilities, the ability to be creative, the ability to heal, the ability to be an empath. But that's for those of us who, are learning how to hold this amazing gift that we have, and we realize the power of it, and we want to do good with it. But again, just as beautiful and powerful as anything can be, it can also be used for self-purposes. It can also be used in a manipulative way. And anytime you get Scorpio with money, that's a hard combination. But on the positive side, the Libra has the ability to make money, a lot of times other people's money, which is a Scorpio characteristic. And they do really well with that, okay? So they have that intuitive ability on how to make money. They can be the #1 counselors as well, or mediators. Now, when we look at the Libra, where is their intuitive creative ability play out? I look at the fact that they have the 6th house in Pisces. The 6th house in Pisces is kind of like your daily work. What do you do every single day? And with the 6th house in Pisces, it's kind of interesting, because you would think Libras, really want to have like a regular schedule. But, Pisces is kind of living in that like flow land of like, what's going to happen next? They don't like to wear a watch. They like to flow in their daily work. They like to go here, go there, try this, try that. They don't necessarily want to be pinned down to a strict work ethic, because they want to be able to intuitively be creative because your sixth house is also the place that is connected to the second house of money. So here we have these strong intuitive and psychic abilities when it comes to making money and comes to being creative. Pisces, when you look at the Pisces, we also see, yes, they are the empath. They're good with animals. A lot of times they're connected to old soul animals, the horse. You see strong energy there. You see Libras, that love art, fine art. They can be extremely creative in their daily routine and how, where they work. They're awesome artists. You also see them as musicians. Many times they have beautiful voices. Those are some of the characteristics. So in their daily sixth house routine, they want to live in a very creative world. They don't want to be pinned down. And so that's where their intuitive and empathic ability comes out in their day-to-day life. And when we look at their 10th house, which is where Cancer is, that's the other psychic ability, we see that the 10th house is your public house, your public reputation of career. So Libras often come out to the world as a caretaker, as someone you can go to, to be nurtured, but it's more in a balanced way. They're going to give you good advice. They're going to give you both sides of the coin, but there's still a strong feeling when you talking to a Libra that they're interested in you and that the type of work that they do has this very mothering and nurturing feel to it when they express it to the world. So we're looking and we're saying, I'm talking about psychic ability, intuitive ability, but I'm also saying in your everyday life, how to use this part of you. It's an element. It's a part of all of us that so often we've shut down. We're not allowed to talk about. But I want to bring it out into the open. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. Let's go ahead and move on to the Scorpio. Okay, I'm excited to get here. Now, anytime you have a water sign in the first house, I was talking earlier in, I think my second video, part 2, the first house is the first thing that you see. That's why when you meet a Libra, you're not going to see that intuitive ability right off the bat. It's not till they start working on how to make money that you're going to see them, be more intuitive and psychic there. But the first house, if it's ruled by a water sign, these people, they can't hide this side of them. They can't have a really intellectual discussion and then inside they're going crazy. You talk to a Scorpio, boom, they're not going to be able to hide their face on how they feel about things. Now, this is for those of you who have your ascendant, sun, or moon in Scorpio. You may identify with what I'm getting ready to talk about. Scorpio is, again, it's the ability to look at things that nobody else wants to look at, the deep, dark truths. And many times they do have very emotionally intense lives. On one hand, the Scorpio can be the eagle, can be the healer, can be the wise counsel, can be the prophet. They can see into the future, but they don't lie. And they don't, they know the truth. And even if they are lying, they perfectly know they're lying. They don't deceive themselves. If they are cheating or betraying someone, they know it. It's not like, they might not tell anybody about it, but they know within themselves. They do not have that self-delusion where they tell themselves another story. They know the truth. They can't deny that. So, I'm just saying that this is an energy that they can't get away from, the deep, dark truth of life. They often will attract very emotionally intense relationships because they live in this plane of seeing everything based on the deep, dark truth. So unless they're talking on that level, in that vibration with someone, it's in vain to them. They feel like, what is the purpose of this conversation? because unless we're having a really deep, dark, honest conversation, I'm not interested. That's because they live right off the surface, seeing through everything. They are the detectives. They have the ability to solve the mysteries. You know, they are the ones who can find the answer. If you want somebody, if you're looking for something like on the internet and you can't find it, ask a Scorpio friend and they will find it for you. You know, they're awesome at searching out anything. So that's one thing about understanding, especially if you get in a relationship with a Scorpio, that you understand that, you know, the stakes are high on emotional commitment or issues. Truth is important. Now, again, these energies, these intense energies, when we don't often know how to use them or they spin out of control, you know, can turn to manipulative situations, because when a Scorpio loses the truth in their relationships, loses the power that they so need, then they have the ability to turn that around so that they don't get hurt. They often will hurt others. Just as a protection mechanism. It's the Scorpion. And, you know, they kind of do their own thing. They're not bugging anybody, but don't back them in a corner, because that little stinger will come out. And I'm not telling you Scorpios anything you don't know. So, you know, I'm not saying that to, you know, bring out, you know, the problems in each sign, because that's, you know, we kind of know what those are. But I want you to understand that you carry this amazing power in your intuitive ability. And you can also use this to hurt people, because of the fact you know things and see things and understand things on such a deep level that if you're hurt, you can use this power against others. Okay, so having psychic ability, intuitive ability, you know, it's kind of like, you know, sometimes it's like, you know, carrying dynamite, and we have to know how to use it. And so when the Scorpio gets a hold of this and it starts flowing, they just become those that we all go to. There's nothing like an awesome Scorpio friend that you trust and they trust you, and you can go to them because they're going to tell you the truth. And it's always good to have at least one person in your life that will tell you the truth, whether you like it or not. So I don't know. I hope that makes sense. I'm just, you know, I'm talking intuitively myself and just trying to be honest with what I see through these energies. Now, Scorpio has the 5th house in Pisces. Okay, this is really, really important, because the 5th house is your house of children, of creativity, of romance. Often that's why you see the Scorpio-Pisces connection so strong, because 5th house is ruled by Pisces. So the Scorpio really loves the Piscean energy when it comes to expressing themselves, because the Pisces is also another very psychic and intuitive sign, but they know how to express their emotions. And a lot of times the Scorpio has a hard time trusting anybody with their emotions. They hold them in so tight because it's, you know, it's like a treasure to them. And they're not going to give away that to just anybody. But when it comes to romance and children, they have this, they all of a sudden, they loosen up and they start opening up, and it's private. It's private, but you will see, especially Scorpio moms. I mean, they are so devoted to their children. I mean, I've seen a lot of Scorpio moms, and I'm like, wow. I mean, their kids are like right by them all the time, and they are so devoted, because when it comes to children romance, you know, that's where they really feel vulnerable. And when they open up, so again, even though that's a place they open up, the other side of them is very protective. So they don't want to lose that in their relationships. And that Piscean energy, you know, Neptune, can be so slippery. So it's kind of hard for them when it comes to romance and families and children, because you can't always control Neptune. And a lot of times it can draw in deceptive situations. It can also draw in addiction type relationships, or they can have problems in those areas with people that they draw in that, you know, have addictions or what have you, psychological problems, all of those things. But on the creative side, the Scorpio in their house, their fifth house of creativity, can also be awesome photographers. They can be awesome artists as well. They can be awesome writers. They can be awesome film directors. All of those things are possible because when it comes to them expressing their creativity, they loosen up and they get that intuitive side of them opens up. And if they allow that to come in, it's a beautiful thing. Okay, so that's a little bit about where that energy really comes out for them, is in your fifth house, or for you in your fifth house if you're a Scorpio. Ninth house, Cancer. So ninth house for the Scorpio is travel, is higher education, is can also possibly represent a father. There's a lot of times where the Scorpio may have a father theme in their life, where they take a father, or they had a father that was sick, or they had a father issue that was troubling. That can be a possibility. And so their nurturing, caretaking ability comes out in that ninth house. It's where, again, they're vulnerable intuitively. Every time we open up our intuitive gift, you guys, our psychic ability, we're vulnerable. It's very vulnerable. It's very vulnerable for me to come up here right now and talk to you about these deep subjects and, you know, use my intuition. I'm trying not to overthink. I'm trying to let my intuition flow. And I feel vulnerable right now. I feel more vulnerable than if I was coming up here with perfect little notes and I had everything perfect, you know. I would feel more in control of the situation. But right now, I am vulnerable because I'm trying to speak from my heart and my experience. And that's a different feeling. And so for Scorpios, that's why a lot of times they will educate themselves in the healing arts. That's a lot of times, you know, Reiki healers is excellent for them. Any type of study, higher education that has to do with healing. And that's why they make a lot of times the #1 nurses, surgeons, doctors working in hospitals, because their ninth house education is learning how to take care of people. You see a lot of Scorpios working in the hospitals, and they're the ones sitting next to somebody that's crossing over on the other side. They're not afraid of death. They're not afraid of that process. It's not to say it doesn't hurt them like everybody else, but they have the ability to help people cross over. Scorpios can be the #1 mediums or pick up on energies from the other side. A lot of times the Scorpio energy will come through actually messages. They'll get symbols, they'll get letters, they'll get feelings, they'll actually hear voices. And that's why a lot of times, you know, it's like, gosh, am I schizophrenic? What's going on? And I'm not saying that some of these energies and our wiring can't get out of balance, but a lot of times you are hearing spiritual messages, and it's learning how to understand this energy, and the fear will go away. And when the fear goes away, you'll be able to understand this gift that you have. So I'm bringing that up because I know a lot of people come to me that, you know, experience some of these things, and they are diagnosed, or, you know, their family has labeled them with mental issues, mental illness. And some of these things are truly psychic connections and psychic abilities. Now, also, it's important to understand because, and I'll talk about it a little bit more when I get to Pisces, but it's important to understand that the water signs, when it's in your first house, you know, and the intuitions are coming through, right through your skin, your first impressions, that is why a lot of times the water signs deal with addictions or alcohol or any of those things, because we live on such a high vibration. I have a Pisces rising and a Pisces moon, which I'll talk about. And we live in this level of feeling everything. It's very high anxiety at times if you don't understand it. And that's why the addiction for the water signs is so strong, because they're trying to die down the nervous system, the feelers, the sensitivities, trying to desensitize them. And alcohol or drugs can often do that. So what I'm here to say is, let's embrace these energies, not fight these energies, learn to manage these energies, learn to use them in a powerful way, and then they won't be so intense and scary. That's my goal for these videos, you guys, is to help that for myself. It's something that I have been working on as well in my life, understanding this gift I have and embracing it. So that's just a few things about the Scorpio. Now, of course, you guys, and again, I know I'm talking about all kinds of stuff, so go with me, flow with me. I'm a Pisces moon, so I go all over the place. But, as I intuit some of these thoughts, I want to share them, that this is such a powerful part of our everyday lives. And my goal here is to help you guys, and especially those of you that have strong personal planets in Scorpio, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, in conjunct with the first house, with the rising sign Scorpio. We need to talk. We need to talk in a reading, or let me help you, because again, now we have these energies, very powerfully. Okay, so these are just some things to get you guys thinking and learning about yourselves. All right, so let's get into Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius, they're a fire sign. So, they come off when you first meet a Sag. They're inspiring. They usually have a big smile. They're kind of cool. They're good to go. They're adventurous. They want to travel. They don't want to, be caught up, in too much of an intense situation, because they want to go check out what's around the corner. There's an adventure around that corner. We don't want to get bogged down in emotional stuff. So you first meet them, you feel the fire. They're highly intelligent, extremely highly intelligent, and they're constantly digging and searching for knowledge. They're just empowered. The more they learn, the more knowledge they have, the more empowered they are. And it's a lifelong quest, okay? Education, higher learning. So if you're a Sagittarius, you know what I'm talking about. For a Sag, they have the fourth house in Pisces. Now, the fourth house, again, we've talked about it, is home. And the fourth house is, how you were raised a lot of times, or how you're raising your family. It kind of goes throughout your life, and it's that process of your private home. Okay, the fourth house is ruled by Cancer, so it's the place we find emotional security. It's often the place that we are connected with our mothers. And being that it's in Pisces, the Sag often deals with a very Neptunian family life. There could have been addiction. There could have been deception. They could deal with a parent who has mental illness, or a parent who, was very sick. They can deal with a very deceitful family situation. I know one friend of mine that's a Sagittarius rising, and she was kidnapped at a young age, taken away from her mother and raised by the father, and didn't find out till many years later that, how much the mother did love them and couldn't find them. But often it's a traumatic kind of weird situation in their home lives. So when it comes to family things, even though the Sag looks like they're just, on fire on the surface, deep inside in that home life, they really understand, the intensity of the family dynamics. And that's where, when they get around their family, that they just get into that intuitive mode. It kind of reminds me, I'm going to go off on like a little weird analogy here that just came in my head. But people who learn sign language, some people are raised with a grandmother, maybe that was deaf, or a parent, and their whole life they learn sign language. And so the only way for them to communicate with that grandmother is through sign language, or that family through sign language. Or maybe they have their mother and father have a different language. And the only way for them to communicate is when they speak that other language. Well, that's what this reminds me of. It's like when you get around your family, when you get around your home, you almost have to speak this other language. And it's this intuitive language. And you just kind of understand these crazy people around you and your family. But you love them. You do love them and you accept them, but they're crazy, you know. So that's one way this can play out. When you get in a little deeper now, we've got the 8th house Cancer. So now here we go. The 8th house is the most psychic house of all the houses. So when you have the 8th house in a water sign on top of, you know, 4th house and 12th house, those are all the water signs. So the Sagittarius really underneath the surface is very intuitive, very emotionally connected and psychic. Again, it doesn't come out in their overall first impression, the first house, but as you get to know them. And again, 8th house is resources, intimacy, other people's money, inheritance. They often, again, can have a very strong, intense issue with mother. Again, the example that I used with my friend, that, you know, her whole life she was separated from her mother and longed for her mother. And finally, in the later years, they were able to reconnect and find out the story was not as exactly as it was. But she lived her whole life, you know, estranged from her mother. And that can be an 8th house thing. And so when it comes to your deepest part of yourself as a Sagittarius, mother themes, women themes, grandmother themes can be very, very powerful. Okay. And a lot of times this is, you know, there will be a mother that comes into the Sagittarian's life and takes the place of maybe a mother that was absent. A grandmother, or, you know, just somebody that ends up being a powerful role. So just because we see these areas of vulnerability doesn't mean that the universe doesn't bring in powerful ways of healing that. It's just not always in the traditional way. So again, 8th house issues, inheritance, mothers, grandmothers, all of those things you're going to be very emotional about, very psychic and intuitive about, and it's the place that you show a lot of that vulnerability. Okay, so, you know, use that. Now we've got 12th house Scorpio for the Sagittarius. So this is 12th house is places of isolation, our subconscious. It can represent the jails. It can represent mental hospitals. It can represent rehabilitation centers. It can represent a place of isolation. And the Sag, by nature, does not like to be isolated. They're out having a great time in their first impression. That's what they want to do. That's their passion. That fulfills the ego in them. But I believe having the 12th house in Scorpio is one of the reasons that they do such deep, intense studies, that they're so intelligent, because Scorpio is able to understand things that, you know, the deep, dark things of life. So when they're studying, when they're, you know, when they're really absorbing, when they're quiet, they don't get quiet often, but when they get out in nature and when they're out doing those things that Sagittarians love to do, it fulfills them there. And it's a deep place. And, you know, the last 2.5 years with Saturn and Scorpio for the Sagittarians been really intense, because it has pulled you back behind the scenes. You know, also, you know, when we look at something like this with 4th house Pisces, this could represent mental hospitals. It's possible you grew up with a mother in a mental hospital, or you grew up with somebody you knew in prison. Okay, these, again, they're themes, and I can go into more detail in a private reading, but, you know, just to give you guys an idea that these are some of the areas that will be the most intense in your life, and where you have to dig deep for intuitive wisdom. It's not the wisdom of your mind. It's not the wisdom of your heart. It's the wisdom of your soul. And this is where it comes through. So, okay, let's keep going. This might be long, you guys. I want to try to finish. I might try to go a little faster. Now we've got Capricorn. Capricorn, that is an earth sign. So when you first meet a Cappy, they're earthy, they're strong, they're powerful, they're ambitious, they're, you know, they're kind of non-emotional. Let's get everything done. They're talking about their bank account, talking about paying their bills. You know, they're talking about practical things, and, you know, they want to get stuff done. But when they start talking to their community, to their brothers, to their sisters, to their cousins, to the people they love, they suddenly have this soft-spoken ability, this healing ability. They become the oak tree for their community, for the people they love. If you have a brother with a strong Capricorn energy, or a sister, you know, you might at first go, oh yeah, they're tough. And yes, they are. But you know what? When the shit hits the fan, guess where you're going? you're going to that Capricorn brother or sister, because they're going to help you get things straightened out. And they have this love and this empathy towards their family, to their immediate family, more sisters, brothers, community. Okay, it's not necessarily mother, it's his brothers, sisters, community. This is their communication to the world. So they have a real soft-spoken ability. They are the seahorse, so they have that intuitive ability when it comes to community affairs. And, you know, this is when you see the Cappy at their best, when they are using their healing ability. We see the 7th house in Cancer, so the Capricorn desires, as hard as they are, because it's ruled by Saturn, as hardworking as they are. They're the ones whose back hurts. They're the ones whose shoulders are tight. They're the ones who are physically beat up at the end of the day from hard, grueling labor. They need a Cancer partner. They need someone to nurture them and to heal them and to bring out that soft side of them. And so when this happens, when they're in this place of partnerships and love relationships, when you get past all the hard workaholic work, and at the end of the day, when you're alone in your home and security, you paid all the bills, you're so happy, right? Now you want to be with your partner and you want to experience this nurturing ability or nurturing scenario. You want to be in a place where you can have these private moments with your partner, and that partner provides emotional security for you. Because even though on the front, you put off that, you know, that poker face that the Capricorn's so good at, that deadpan, when it comes to relationships, that's when you're most vulnerable, and your intuitive ability can come out, and you'll receive that intuitive connection from your partners. 7th house Cancer. Okay, so you need nurturing partners. That's okay. You want that. And believe me, that Cancer wants you too. They want the financial security. They provide the emotional security. You provide the financial security. It's beautiful opposition. Can be. And then we have 11th house Scorpio. So that's your hopes, dreams, wishes, friends, higher ups. And this is why they can make such good builders, construction workers, you know, even like work in banks. You see a lot of Capricorns work in banks because all the teachers around them are very scorpionic, plutonic. They're hard workers. They're psychologically tough, and they teach the Capricorn how to be tough. You'll be attracted by gurus, by those kind of people. It's more of a one-on-one teaching in your relationships. And again, this is where you can use your intuitive ability. It goes beyond your practical mind. This energy that I'm trying to share with you guys is about using your psychic ability that goes on past your thinking for the air signs, your practical thinking for the earth signs, and your passion for the fire signs. This is what goes above and beyond. Water seeks its own level. Water seeps through everything. Think about the element of water. You know, if you've got fire and you've got water, what's going to end up being more powerful together? The water's going to put the fire out, okay? If you've got a dry, cracked earth and you've got water, the water's going to bring healing to the earth, okay? If you've got electricity and you've got air, and, you know, it's raining or the steam, you got to be careful of water and electricity. That can be dangerous. But the water is going to bring moisture and water the plants, water the earth around it, bring it into the air. You know what I'm talking about, you guys. Just visualize this for yourselves and see that this plays out in relationships and within ourselves, okay? The water is healing if we allow it to be, all right? Water can also get toxic, okay? So we've got to spend time keeping our filters, keeping our water clean and used for higher purposes. Okay, so let's get into the Aquarian. Aquarian, 2nd house Pisces. This is where you can make money. Again, this creative ability. Again, you see a lot of Aquarians also loving photography, movie making, directing, working in film, acting, out in the world. That's why they're humanitarians. They can make money doing things that help heal the earth, the water bearer. That's the part of them you see when they are activated. A lot of our #1 talk show hosts and radio talk show hosts and all of those things that are coming out, bringing messages for everybody. Yeah, they're making money doing that job, but they're healing the world with their values, and good for them. They can hopefully make money doing that too. We've got 6th house Cancer, daily routine. So here we go again. The Aquarians can be the caretaker. I mean, I've known Aquarians, and I'm telling you, they're the ones that collect the cats and save the dogs. They can be the ones that are, you know, saving, caretaking every single day, waking up going, what can I do? How can I help? They love to work with water in their daily routine too. It's really interesting, but the Aquarian a lot of times can love to do things with water as a part of their healing energy. I knew an Aquarian that she took care of horses that were delivering, and it was a huge barn, and it was the most amazing thing because she would sit there and she could feel, you know, this mare is getting ready to go into labor, like before it would happen. And she was so in tune to their sounds and the way their footprints move, because they have such a high sensitivity to vibration. And so every single day she was like the mother of the barn for all these mares having these babies. That's a powerful place. So that again is a way that can play out where your intuition comes out in your daily work. You are like a mothering figure, nurturing figure when it comes to day-to-day work. 10th house Scorpio, your work, how you're seen out into the public, again, is a water sign. So everything that you do, this is where you get, you know, the scientists and the idea people. This is where there's, you know, they come up with brilliant ideas, and then they have that Scorpio ability, that competitive Mars energy to make it happen. Kind of ruthless. They can be ruthless, but it appears that they're ruthless because it comes out in their 10th house. But underneath the surface, they have those soft spots, right? You see them, you guys, where we have these soft spots. The Aquarian is a air sign. So when you first meet one, you know, you got to talk to them through their mind. You're not going to get to these soft spots right off the bat. Takes a while to get there for some of these signs, to open up that emotional, psychic, intuitive sign to you. It all plays together, you guys. You can't have one with the other. You can't have an emotional reaction without intuitive insight. They all go together. So these are the places where the Aquarian brings those forth, okay, in the 2nd, 6th, and 10th house. Another powerful energy. And if you listen to all the signs that I'm talking about, all the air signs are the 2nd, 6th, and 10th house, okay? So you can kind of see all the earth signs, 3rd, 7th, and 11th house. They just play out a little differently. That's why we're all a little different. So understanding the core 3 water signs is the secret here. And then how they play out in different themes. You know, what houses, what part of the rooms do you open up and see that energy in your personal life? Okay, last but not least, you guys, my favorite, the Pisces. Now, I'm born as a Pisces rising and a moon in Pisces. And yeah, my whole entire life, I've been super, super drawn to saving animals. When I was a little girl, I would go out, and I don't know how, but I always found the stray dog, and I would sneak them in the house. My mom sneaks. See, they're a little sneaky as Pisces. I'd sneak them in the house when my mom wasn't home. And we had this green shag carpet. Remember the 70s, you guys, the green shag carpet? And I'd sneak them upstairs through the green shag carpet and into the bathtub. I wanted to wash them. There's my water energy. I wanted to wash the dog and make him feel better and soothe him by giving him this bath. Before I didn't feed him, for some reason, I had to give him a bath. And then I would, you know, I would bond with this animal. I wouldn't want to give it up. But a lot of times I'd have to find a home for the dog, and etc. But the Pisces is the empath. We have a really hard time of all the water signs having any boundaries, any control of our psychic ability, of our intuition, of how emotions come through. It takes us a lot to create boundaries because, like I was saying before, the Cancer sees things through how can they nurture, how can they heal, how can they fix you, physically, it's the doctor, that kind of nurturing nurse doctor energy. The Scorpio is all about, how can I fix you psychologically? How can I help you at the core of your psychological being? Let's go down to that deep, dark place. But the Pisces, we're just about like living to your fullest potential, inspiration, connecting to the heavens, connecting to God, connecting to spirit. It's a different energy, and a lot of times we wear the rosy colored glasses. We don't want to look at the evil or the bad. We don't want to see it because we want to see your potential. What if we could show you your potential in such a powerful way that you wouldn't want to go do that bad thing anymore? That you would want that amazing part of your life, that you would grasp it, that you would just somehow, that would just not be of any power to you, because now you suddenly see how incredible you could be. See how excited I get, you guys, and all you Pisces out there. No, this is I'm letting it rip. This is the Pisces feel. That's what makes me the happiest. It's not a selfish, manipulative energy, or controlling energy. In fact, it's hard to control others or even control ourselves. We can be controlled very easy. We can play victim savior roles. We can attract the people at the bottom of the barrel of life, the low vibrational situations. When I say the bottom of the barrel, I'm just talking about people that, maybe have given up and on everything. Someone that's given up on family. They might even be homeless. The worst imaginable place you could be. Those are the people that we're like, oh my gosh, we're just like a magnet to them. And it's like, we don't judge them. We don't see what they look like. We just see their souls, and that's the Piscean energy. It represents the mythology or the story of Jesus, and so we have that. We identify with that type of energy, the storyline of Jesus, that he came and he didn't judge, and he had he had everyone around him that, of all different walks of life, the prostitutes and the tax collectors, and he didn't care. And we identify with that energy, okay? That's just historical evolutionary themes in astrology, that the Pisces represents that story. And so we identify with that energy. And so, it's a different sign. We're the empath. We can feel the spiritual things of the other side, but the Scorpio is able to, like, if they do feel the other side, the energy on the other side, those in heaven, however you want to see it, there's an energy still there. We still don't know exactly how it all works, and everybody has their opinion of it. But regardless of what it all is, nobody can deny we've all had the dreams when someone's come back. We know we've all had those experiences. Most of us have. And so there is something. When I experience that, I experience it by, if I'm thinking about somebody that's crossed over, or I'm feeling them strongly, thinking about them strongly, I will pick up on their emotions, how they felt about something, or maybe how they're feeling now, or if that's possible to grasp that. Those are things that we're all still exploring, but I can feel them. I can go back to an emotion and I can experience it all over again. Pisces and Cancers both have the ability to feel things as if they happened yesterday. The Scorpio can do that too, but it's a little bit more obsessive. It's a different kind of thing. So anyway, you guys, Pisces, 5th house Cancer, their creativity. That's why we come out again wanting to nurture. 5th house can rule small animals, can be veterinarians, caretaking to older people, caretaking to children, caretaking mothers. Pisces are always in a position that they're healing and taking care of the critters on the earth, and people that are, the underdogs, the underprivileged, the people who need someone to be there for them. That's when our intuitive ability comes out the strongest. 9th house Scorpio. That's our spiritual learning. That's what we're interested in those 9th house things. That's why we're the mystics. That's why we do study religions and occults, and we're fascinated with anything spiritual. Pisces in the first house, sun or moon in Pisces, usually live out a very strong spiritual life, spiritual pursuit. And it can play out in a lot of different ways, you guys. So I don't know, I'm going on. I hope anything I said made sense here today. I'm just kind of at the end of this video. I wanted to just express my experience with this. If you want some guidance on this, you know, let me know. Send me an email. I do a reading that can help coach you specifically on where your abilities are, how to use them in your everyday life. And I have an amazing special right now until Christmas. It's $65 for 30 minutes with me. And I can do a private recorded video Google Hangout with you just like this. That would be yours to keep, the gift that keeps on giving. And we can go over these topics and any other topics in astrology, looking at your chart, career, the future cycles ahead, relationships, anything you guys want, I can do. 30 minutes gives us a really good time frame, $65. And even if you want to order that special now, it goes until Christmas. You know, if you can't do the reading now, order it and we can still book it after the 1st. Or if you do a gift certificate, they have all year long to, you know, get their reading. So you guys, don't be out there alone, you know, swimming around with all of this. We need the healers to rise now. We need the intuitives, the psychics to come out now and be a part and be confident and be bold. And for all of you, all 12 signs, you know, I hope this brought you a little bit of focus and a little bit of understanding of your power spots. And I hope you guys know, again, this is a beautiful gift. And I hope you use it in the most powerful light and use it in a way that can help others. So thanks, you guys. If you have any questions, comments, please, I love it. Comment below and let's keep the discussion going. All right, you guys, talk to you soon. Bye-bye.